Tell you, we're having a worse pre-season than Celtic now. Jesus Christ, man. Oh, man. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking with us. Hopefully the echo's gone. I think we've at least sorted that. But, in my, haste to get off, I think I accidentally ended the full stream rather than just logging off individually. So, like I say, absolute shambles. I'm the Mark Lawwell of the Endless Celts team at this moment in time. But we're here. I think there's no echo. Are we all good, boys?
Aye.
I'm good.
I sorted it.
Aye.
You did. You did sort it. Yeah, you did, because you didn't have your headphones plugged in properly. I mean, I don't think you're speaking twice.
I bloody did, lying bloody bastard.
I was going to say, Tony, ending a stream at 8 minutes is even early for your standards, but you know.
I know. I mean, I know that I'm not a huge fan of the 2.5 hour jobs, but that was that's just even a wee bit short for my liking. Anthony needs his books. They need a lot more than that, mate. I've got a couple of cans here next to me, so I think they'll get good used to them the night. What we're drinking tonight, actually, by the way, Ross, I think you were on the Guinness, yeah?
Yeah, man. Oh, I can't do this. There you go. A wee bit of the black stuff.
That looks tremendous, by the way. Stephen, what you on, son?
A black currant tip top from the fridge, nice and cold. A wee straw.
Right, you're ever the professional, man. Ever the professional. There you go. 8-minute podcast, quicker than we Dyson. Can't argue with that. Monty on the Stella of the night. Superb.
Nice.
Poor Stephen getting pulled away from his stamp books. Tell you, I think that's going to run for a while yet, isn't it?
He is
not pulled away from something. Pulled away from something.
So I'll try and get back to where I was. So we obviously just said, me and Ross, Stephen had just said about the fact that, it was a bounce game, nothing too, strenuous. We got some goals, we lost some goals, but, it's probably even less competitive than a friendly, these kind of games. But one of the bright sparks that we did see, and we've seen a wee bit for the last game as well, and Brendan seems to certainly have, been bigging him up in the press as well, and that's Bhoys and Lawwell. What was your own thoughts? I don't know if you watched the game on Wednesday or if you were glued to the England semi-final, but just what your thoughts are on this, man.
I had actually both games on at the same time, through different streams and stuff, but Bhoys and Lawwell has been impressive, but he was also one of Fleetwood's best players last year. Played 38 to 40 games for them. His stats actually compared to what Matt O'Reilly had for MK Dons in the same league over the same kind of time period, which is good. He's moved up from centre back to a kind of anchorman midfielder, but he can also break forward. He's very composed on the ball. I think he's quick. There was a few times he was a wee bit lackadaisical. he was a wee bit lackadaisical, and he let the ball run by him at times, and he wasn't tracking his man. But again, that's all pre-season, and that will come. But one thing I do want to take not issue with, but kind of what you said at the start there, Tony, was there were some goals we conceded, some goals were scored. I think it's only right to say some of the goals we conceded from a defensive point of view was absolutely shambolic, and Stephen Welsh was the main culprit of two of them, as far as I can remember. But nice to score 6, but disappointing to concede 4 against a team who shouldn't be anywhere near the standard of Celtic Football Club, and to score 4 goals for a team like Queen's Park, I'm sure that's a great achievement for them. They can take confidence for that and roll into their new season with Colin Davis in charge. But yeah, overall, good workout, good run, and Bhoys and Lawwell seems to be a bright spark at the moment that we're all seeing, and I'm certainly enjoying watching them.
Well, that's it, Ross, and as I say, he certainly seems to have hopefully building that wee bit of momentum. And as I say, obviously, it was in the shadow of Rangers' new ground. Hopefully, come the new year, because I'm absolutely certain that's where that New Year derby will be getting played. He'll be doing it. He could potentially be doing it on the big time, or at least coming off the bench to replace our new £15 million midfielder that we've invested in August.
Aye, well, fingers crossed. Listen, as I was starting to say earlier on him, and I've not seen a lot of him. He's had really good write-ups off the back of his loan spell, and then he was getting Obviously, good comments off the back of these 2 games, which are again against poor opposition, you would have to say. But whether he can make the breakthrough this season remains to be seen. But he is that type of midfielder that a lot of Celtic fans, including myself, have been craving, where he's completely different on paper. He's completely different from any other midfielder we've got. So whether it be Bosun, Lau, or somebody else, I think that profile, in terms of his stature and his style, is a player or a midfielder that we should be looking at in this summer window. Whether we get that, I don't know. But listen, I would love the guy to make the step and come into our first team and be that guy that we've all craved for a number of years now. Whether he will be remains to be seen. But by all accounts, he's done well in these 2 games for his comeback. Once we start getting into the American tour, I can't remember if it's next week, whenever it is, I'll pay more attention then, and hopefully not seen Rosson for a while. Unique brand of pish, this lad talks. I do love him though.
I love a player is ending.
See, that's Monty's comeback, because I said I was even happy to see him in the comments, and I thought it would last until maybe a couple of games into the season. But there you go, get the fuck. But hey, no, listen. I would love to see Lau make the grade and be that different type of midfielder that we all crave. Hopefully he can do that, but if not, we'll probably have to spend 65 million on somebody for Valencia. But we can do that because we've got the money.
I hate that. It's so frustrating.
I'm only kidding.
So frustrating.
Ross, I'm going to come straight back to you, Ross, because I'm moving some of the topics about a bit, because obviously during our technical difficulties, Franco put him up on the group chat from his favourite source, Fabrizio Romano, on X, formerly known as Twitter. And in the words of, Jim Whiteross, we can exclusively reveal that Celtic and Kasper Schmeichel may be joining at the hip, Ross. What do you make of that?
Oh my God.
End stream right now.
In Düsseldorf, it's 11:30. Aye. Listen, I wouldn't be a get. What is Kasper Schmeichel, 38-year-old?
He's no Finnish.
No, he's not. He's certainly no Finnish. I'm on the fence.
He's not 30.
No, he's certainly no 30. No, but no, I'm on the fence with that one. I've said, and certainly in the group chat anyway, in recent times, that the age doesn't matter to me if the guy is going to come in. The way I look at it, right, whether it's Kasper Schmeichel or anybody else, I've not seen Kasper Schmeichel playing for a number of years now. I can't even remember who he'd been at previously there. But out with that, to me, it's not an age thing, because if you sign somebody at 27-year-old, Ross is 27, looks 57. I wish I was 27, Monty. Oh my God, man.
You want to see him at 27?
I'm closer to 57 than 27, I think. But anyway, it's not an age thing for me. The way I look at it is, right, if we get somebody at maybe 36, I think Kasper Schmeichel at 38 possibly might be just that other side, maybe too old. But again, I don't know what his levels of fitness is like. I don't know how he's been in the last couple of seasons or whatever since he left Leicester. But if we're getting somebody in at maybe 35, 36, you're looking at maybe getting 2-3 seasons out of him, like we did with Joe Hart, right? And people make the case that you should bring people make the case that you should bring in somebody at 27-year-old, right? Because they're at the peak. And what the hell? I think that was a bit suggestive there.
There's a lot of licking.
Aye, so at 27, right, people will say that's a keeper that's maybe at their peak. But I think most would agree that keepers peak a bit later in their careers. And for me, if somebody came in at 27-year-old, people are looking and going, "Oh, we've got 5, 6, 7 years out of." But if they come in at 27 and do as well as somebody who would come in with experience at 35, 36, I still think we'd only get maybe 2 or 3 seasons out of that guy, because he's young, he's done well for Celtic, and then bigger clubs or teams down south would start circling, and you would probably only get that 3 seasons anyway. So that's why, to me, age doesn't really matter. But again, I think we've went down recently, and it's worked for us, or in the more recent past, where we've went down that more experienced route with a goalkeeper who are their mid to late 30s, and it's worked for us. So I wouldn't be against it again. I wouldn't be against Kasper Schmeichel, but I wouldn't be like, this is the guy we need to get. He's no like set in stone for me. There's so many options. I've heard Dubravka. I wouldn't be against that. And then you've got obviously the more the sort of younger keepers. Obviously, we were linked to Livakovic. That's never going to happen. There's a few other names that are off the top of my head I can't remember, but there's been that many goalkeepers' names linked to us. But what I do know is we need to get somebody over the line soon, because as much as I think Scott Bain is okay, he's never going to be a Celtic number one. And the other night, or was it Wednesday night? Whatever night it was they were playing, some of the goals he let in was just no good enough. Listen, I know it's pre-season, but there's no way we can go into next season or this season coming with Scott Bain or Siegrist, for that matter, as our number one. It just can't happen. We need to get somebody over the line soon. I'm not panicking about it. I'm quite comfortable. I think we will get somebody over the line, and people are worried because they're like, "Oh, he'll come in and then he's not had a pre-season, and then there's no way he's going to start against Kilmarnock because he'll not be ready." For me, it's different with goalies. You can come into a team and start that Kilmarnock game, even if we sign him during the American tour. I think it doesn't matter. He can come in and still be a better goalie than Scott Bain. I know that you need to build up that trust with the defence, but that'll come. And in an ideal world, we would have got a goalie in sooner. But I still believe that whoever we sign can go straight into the team, in much the same way as a Juranovic or an Alistair Johnson came in the January window and went straight into the team and played at Ibrox and performed brilliant. That can still happen. I've no worries or qualms about that.
That's fair enough, mate. And purely, and whether it be the name or not, I think I've seen enough respect for Kasper Schmeichel, certainly during his time at Leicester, to see, and obviously with the Danish squad as well, that, and I appreciate that he is getting older, but just purely on my side, if somebody was to tell me that Celtic will sign him and he'll be our number one going into the start of the season, like I kind of agree with Monty. I of course it's not young, but I don't think it's necessarily the absolute retirement age for a goalkeeper. It might just be, Joe Hart knows his own body and knows that this is the time for him to quit. But it's or retire. Sorry, quit's probably not the right word. But that's not to say that Kasper Schmeichel can't do another season or two. Which is why I certainly wouldn't be against it. And I think his abilities have been there for all to see. Yes, he played in a good Leicester side, and they had good defenders in front of them, but both in that league winning season and in the cup winning season, and also just throughout his time in the Premier League, I think he's definitely been one of the better goalkeepers. Of course, he's been prone to a few errors, but what goalkeeper isn't? And I think we've said in the group chat about the mental strength that some players have got to have in terms of playing for Celtic. It's a whole different ballgame. I think he's shown, certainly just with his personality and his character, that it's something, if I could foresee the type of personality he is, and if he connected with the fans, having a similar kind of relationship to what Joe Hart did, and that would obviously be the dream scenario, but we'll just have to wait and see on that happens. So I would say that I'm all for it. Ross, I think you're more you would be happy and on the fence, but probably wouldn't be down if it did happen. So,
well,
Stephen,
so can I just can I just say before you go to Stephen? Sorry, I felt the same about Joe Hart, by the way, and I was proved wrong. I was really on the fence when Joe Hart came in, and he'd obviously had a bit of it didn't go well for him for a few years before he came to Celtic. But can I ask, was Kasper Schmeichel the Denmark goalie in the Euros?
Yeah.
Good question.
He was. Was he, Stephen?
Yeah.
Well, that says a lot. If he's at 38 still getting picked for what is a very decent international team, I think that says a lot. So I would, again, still on the fence, but not as on the fence. I would err towards that's okay, but with the caveat that 38-year-old, you're getting a season or two out of him at best. But listen, there must be other keepers out there other than Kasper Schmeichel. I mean, there is, because we've been linked to everybody under the sun. But aye, go for it, Stephen.
I mean, for me, like, Celtic have known 4 to 5 months now that Joe Hart was hanging up the gloves, and for the needle to land at Kasper Schmeichel, I think it was pure laziness. And for me to have him prepared properly with a proper shortlist, with a proper process to get a good number one through the door, the whole point of replacing Joe Hart, in my opinion, is to get someone in with the view to the future, with the view to 3 or 4 good years in the Celtic shirt, and then yes, you move on for a fee. We all know that's going to happen anyway. But looking at again at a 37, 38-year-old Kasper Schmeichel, it's uninspiring. He's worked with Rodgers before. There's a link there, obviously. And I heard him talking about Kasper Schmeichel before the previous press conference. I think it was before the Ur game, and he said he's a great keeper. So the interest must be there from some quarters. But I'm like Ross, maybe not as kind of okay with it as Ross would be, but what he said in terms of there's other keepers out there, they're 1,000,000% his, and rightly so. We've been linked with about 4 million.
About a million of them, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this is a position we have to get right. We have to get right getting into this season. It's probably the key transfer to the whole squad at the moment is a goalkeeping position, because Scott Bain won't cut the mustard. Oluwami again didn't get a look in against Queen's Park. Seagrass came in ahead of him. Josh Clark is bubbling under the surface, but he'll probably go out and loan again. So we do need that position filled and pronto. And the Kasper Schmeichel thing just doesn't fill me with great confidence or joy. Yes, I felt like that with Joe Hart was proved wrong. I can accept that, but we're signing this guy and he's older than when we got Joe Hart. He's near 40. He's 38 probably. You know what I mean? It's not an ageism thing. It's more, I want Celtic to be forward thinking and progressive and look for a keeper in the mid-20s, early 30s, and try and get a good couple of years out of him, because we're going to be in the exact same process in 2 years' time again. If he stays 2 years, looking for another number one. And then what we're going to do? Do you know what I mean? We need to start planning ahead and planning for the future. And look, I understand that comes a risk where a keeper could impress so much that another club buys him off. That's no problem at all. We replace that and do that again. But I just think it's so lazy. It's so typical Celtic. And it's just like, what have you been doing for the last 4 to 5 months to land on Kasper Schmeichel? And like, no disrespect, the guy's won a Premier League. He's still the Danish number one. He's still playing club football. But I don't get it. I just don't understand it. I really don't. I'm not even angry no more. I'm just disappointed. That's the best way I can really
Stephen,
say. Yeah.
Can I ask you, right? By the way, I think most of what you say there is very valid, and I can't disagree with it. Just a question, really. If Celtic, right, signed Kasper Schmeichel, or went out and got somebody at 26-year-old, right, which most likely we would never have heard of, would they know anything about him? We'd be, as much as the club has done the scouting, we'd be blind, right? And maybe it's like sort of post Barkas kind of fear, but would you be more confident in seeing us bringing in Kasper Schmeichel, or a guy that we've not heard of coming in for a league like a player that we signed for an outfielder, right? A player that we've not heard of. For the most part, that's what we sign. Would you be more comfortable with a guy at 26 coming in, unheard of, unseen, untried, or Kasper Schmeichel?
The latter of what you said there. I think we hold on to this Barkas situation and use it as a blueprint not to take a risk and sign a goalkeeper again from a foreign country. I know you're not saying that, but people do bring that up, and that we paid £5 to £6 million for Barkas. We can't do it again because it's a risk and it might end this way. There's a lot of factors that happened with Barkas. It was COVID. He didn't mix well with the team. He was separate. He was living in a hotel. He wasn't with his family. So there's all these things have to take into consideration. And by all accounts, over Utrecht in Holland, he's doing a great job. And he was even linked with Sevilla during the summer there, during this window for their goalkeeping position. So he is a good keeper. It just didn't work out at Celtic, and that happens. But I just don't think to say not saying they're saying this for us, but people saying we paid a fee for a foreign keeper from a foreign country. We shouldn't do it because it didn't work out before. But we should keep doing it. I think we should keep doing it, because you're going to find an absolute star from a different country. And yeah, Kasper Schmeichel, he's the old steady hand. He's an experienced pro. But maybe 1.5, 2 years you're getting out of him, and then you're chasing another experienced pro. Unless that's the business model, unless that's what Rodgers wants, then that's fine. But I would presume that Rodgers has went to the board. Look, it's been a multitude amount of time now since we've known what's going on. Who can we bring in? Tell me the names. I've got a few suggestions. I hope it works like that. But that's why I think the Kasper Schmeichel thing's lazy. It feels like he's played with Rodgers before. He's a free agent. And it's just, we'll take him. Instead of doing due diligence, doing the proper scouting, doing the proper kind of, what about this guy? Tell me about him. What's his stats? How many times has he played? Clean sheets? All that kind of stuff that you would delve into in the scouting department. So that's why I'm not really infused by it. That's why I don't think it's a out-of-the-box thinking by Celtic. I think we're in a great position where we can take risks at the moment. By the way, this is excluding the money we have in the bank, because I know we'll probably come on to that, but I'm on about we could afford to maybe go, what about the AZ Alkmaar goalkeeper? What about, just naming things, someone in Serie A mid-table, someone in the Bundesliga mid-table? What about their goalkeepers? What are they doing? How much do we need to pay for them? Do you know what I mean? So there's ways to do it, and I just think we're being really lazy and really uninspiring at this precise moment.
Monty's literally just brought up the question I was going to ask there, Stephen. By the way, all valid points. I have to say, just in terms and agreeing with what Ross is saying there. What I would say is, and it's purely using some of Brendan's own quotes against him for last week, was obviously, as this summer is going on, he's obviously been asked a few times about the fact that we haven't got any players in yet. And he obviously, last year, we know we did bring an abundance of players in, but they were very much more on the, sign them low, hopefully sell high, project hopeful sort of thing. And, that didn't really work out either. Stephen just blanking out there. Ross, will come to you then whilst he's
No, I'm putting the charger in. I'm putting the charger in.
Thought you were getting ready to huck too there. Jeez, oh.
Well, you want to spit in that thing off me, do you? Is that what you're trying to tell me, is it?
But so Stephen, I'll ask you first. Sorry, Ross, because I just want to get your thoughts on it as well. But basically, what you were saying about how Brendan's, last year we brought in a load of players that, let's be charitable and say, haven't quite worked out yet. And when he was asked about that last week, he says, well, we actually could have had 9 players in by now, but we haven't. Now, that spoke to me as basically him being sort of offered these players, some of the guys that, we could get this guy, we could get that guy. This is a possibility. And the manager, and it's for me, it's good news, because I think the manager, I'm old school, I think the manager should be in charge of, the players he wants to bring in. And I think he just keeps saying no, 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 no. Do we possibly think that 2 or 3 of those potential 9 players could have been another goalkeeper? And it's basically perhaps reached this stage of Romano saying that it's now in advanced talks, that possibly within the last few days, Brendan's perhaps sharing some of your frustrations and going, I've told you to find me a goalkeeper. all the ones you're linked with, it's not meeting that criteria, that criteria, that criteria. I can get, I've got Casper's phone number. We can get him. I know him. I've worked with him before. Go and get him in. Do you think that potentially could be what happened? It basically, Brendan's possibly at the end of his tether to an extent and saying, listen, if you can't find me a better keeper than Kasper Schmeichel, then go and get me Kasper Schmeichel.
Well, it could be the frustration that he has, but what I would say to that is, it shows that nothing's really changed from a board's point of view, from a board's perspective, to get things done quickly and efficiently and the way Rodgers wants. So again, is there going to be a conflict there during the season? Is things going to come to a head like it did the first time? That's obviously all hypothetical, but if what you're saying there, you're asking me, is he having the same frustrations, then it all boils down to the fact that the board aren't doing the job that Rodgers wants the board to do and act out on his behalf and find these players. And there's no doubt that we've probably opened the filing cabinet and said, pick your 9 players from this filing cabinet. And Rodgers has said no. And I'm happy he said no, because we can't fill the squad with project players or youth developmental players for years to come. And I mean, people will be wondering why I'm a wee bit concerned, not panicking, about the lack of signings, is merely because I'm watching every other member club of the SPFL signing players, getting their squad strong, and regardless of fees and stuff, but they're still making moves in the transfer market. We've done nothing. And I do agree that we need to kind of step away from making the quick signing the £2 to £3 million. And I hope that's what Rodgers means when he's looking to get the 2, 3, 4, 5 players of quality that can come in and improve the squad right away. We heard the jargon last season, but I hope he's putting his foot down and he's really going forward with that in this recruitment process. But for me, that goalkeeping position, if we had assigned a goalkeeper, but I'd be happy, because then you can start putting the building blocks in place while you're in the States. Then you look forward to the first game of the season. But we're going over to the States. We're going to play DC United. We're going to play Manchester City and Chelsea. And if Scott Baines goes, you think Queen's Park scoring 4 is bad? You may as well turn off the TV. That's that type of levels there. Like, we'll make a few quid out of a tour of America, but it's not really exciting to look forward to. And the Kasper Schmeichel thing, if we can't find a keeper better than a 38-year-old Kasper Schmeichel, whoever works in the recruitment department still, they can fuck off and Mark Lawwell, because that's a fucking disgrace, and it pisses me off that them assholes get paid to do that job and they can't do it.
Don't know about you, Ross. I've missed the big man.
I've missed his right. He's fully that juice there, man. I can't remember what he called it.
Step up.
So all the tuck shop drinks have gone to the heat there.
No, but I mean, come on, you have to.
Yeah, listen, Stephen. It would not be the Endless Celts podcast without a Tomlinson rant of some description. But no, listen, and all joking aside, that's a lot of valid points, and it was kind of the line I was going in the sense that yes, Mark Lawwell's out the door, but you know, are we perhaps still seeing the after effect of his departure, in the sense that perhaps not enough has changed. Okay, maybe the manager's getting more of a veto, shall we say, on, you know, he's not going to just accept the players he's offered, like he sort of said diplomatically last year. He's basically now saying, no, I'm not going to accept anything less than what I want. So, you know, and if that's true, then more power to him, and fingers crossed. Ross, I'll come to you the same question, mate. Do you think that scenario that I painted might be the reason why Brendan's decided, you know, assuming that this is the case and Kasper Schmeichel is going to be coming in, that perhaps of those 9 players, you know, that he, you know, says that we could have had in by now, that some of them were potential keepers, and Brendan, for one reason or another, whether it be age, whether it be the you know, the personality or whatever, just has decided, no, I want someone that I trust and who I've worked with before?
Aye, it's very possible. That's a really good example to use. And like yourself, like Stephen, I'm fairly happy at that, because it does speak to the fact that last season Rodgers came in and he was feeling his way back into the job, and he's accepted these players that were sort of put to him, and he's accepted them, and they've came into the squad, and most of them have not done what you would hope they would do. But it's sort of. I've had a train of thought the last few weeks. What I want us to sign, what I think we'll sign, and what I think or what I hope we sign, and then what I think we'll end up with. And that what you're saying there is why I think we'll end up with maybe. I think we maybe need 7 players. I think we need a goalie. I think we need a centre half. I think we need a left back to challenge Greg Taylor or take his place. I would like to see a midfielder, as I said earlier, that's different from anything we've got. I think we need 2 wingers, and I think we need a striker. That's 7 players, right? And for me, I don't think we'll get that, right? Because I don't think the board will push that far out with the level of player. The level of player that Rodgers wants in, I don't think they'll sign 7 of that in this window. And I don't expect the club to sign 7 of that in this window, because that's a big outlay. And what you're saying there is Rodgers is only accepting the level of player that he wants, and I love that, right? So what is it I said? 7 players that I think we need. What I would expect us to get, or what I think is possible, would be a keeper, a left back, a centre half, and a striker. If we get 4 out of that 7, I think we've done well this window, and then we can build on for there, hopefully in January. That's what I would hope we get. But again, if Rodgers is not accepting everything that's put to him, and like what you've said, he's ended up at Kasper Schmeichel because the options he's given him are not good enough. I don't know, but I think we'll get 4 of the 7 that I think we need. That's my personal opinion. It's whether we get the quality that Rodgers wants remains to be seen. It's a really difficult one, but at the moment, my bar is really low for this summer window. I'm not getting my hopes built up. I'm not expecting anything. But if we get 4 players, I will be delighted. And as I've said, the 4 players for me would be a goalie, a centre half, a left back, and a striker at worst. I think we need 2 wingers, but if we don't get them and we have to run with what we've got already, so be it. But the wingers on the evidence of last season are not good enough. James Forrest will maybe get a season 2 out of him, if that. He couldn't get a game for Scotland this season for whatever reason. He done brilliant for us at the end of last season, the last sort of 10 games we experienced, but can he do it, over the course of a full season? I'm not sure anymore. But like James said, I think it was on Monday, that his expectations is through the floor. I'm probably not just as bad as James, but I don't. What I want and what I expect, I think Celtic will still fall short of that. I really do, and that's me, a positive guy. As I've said, I want 7. I expect 4. I don't even know if the board will come up trumps with 4, and that's why in the group chats and stuff, I've not been getting too involved, because I'm like, I can't do the same argument over and over again about the time and the Euros and all the rest of it. They're no excuses. They're reasons as to why it's taking longer. Because if we're going for that level up for what we signed last season, then the players, some of the players might have been at the Euros, albeit that they won't be at the Euros now. We're not signing that level of player, but they players that finished sort of the group stages, maybe even the last 16, they'll have their fortnight off. And I know that it's not just them you're dealing with, and there's agents and stuff like that. But if I'm away at the Euros and I've had a long, hard season, my phone's off and I'm spending time with the family, and then I come back and I deal with all the stuff then. And if I'm moving to Celtic, it gets dealt with then. And I think there's still plenty of time for us to get players in. But again, I'll say it, I don't think that we'll get the 4 that I expect at the very least. I still don't think we will. I think it's going to take, for Rodgers to get the level of player that he's talking about, I think it's going to take 2-3 windows to get the squad and the team to where he wants it to be in his eyes. It won't happen in this window. But if we start making strides, good.
Absolutely, mate. Sorry, me and Jimmy were just having a wee moment there. Still been still on the high for last week and all that, But yeah, you're absolutely bang on, Ross. And listen, I think me and you and Willie, and I'm sure Stephen won't actually won't deny that. I think us 3 are probably the ones that are more like, let's not panic. Let's not get too concerned. Let's see how things wait out. And I think you're absolutely bang on in the sense of things like the Euros and things like that. Because, when we were even discussing that we're going to do a show at certain points during the Euros, and then we would say, oh, well, there's no point doing one this week because, nothing much is happening at Celtic anyway. But we weren't expecting it to be happening because the Euros are on, etc. But I think where the frustrations lie is even if those reasons are valid, I think that those in charge of your club can sometimes even use that as even more of a buffer than it actually. They think that, okay, right, there's nothing's happening because there's a tournament on, so we can delay things by another few weeks. It's almost like they use that for even more of an excuse than they're already slow processes. In fact, they use that as an excuse to go even slower than what they normally would, if that's making sense. I think it's making sense in my head, but my head's a whole maze of nonsense. We'll talk more, Stephen, about and I think what we'll do is we'll try and not make it necessarily a big in-depth analysis of the Scottish football youth setup, but we'll try and keep it Celtic specific about these 2 potential players that we're going to mention. Now, obviously, we're talking about players coming in, but there's obviously going to be players going out as well. And for better or worse, we don't like seeing it necessarily when it's boys that have came through the academy that are looking for pastures new for one reason or another. And I think that's why we'll put them in together to start the debate. But I'm sure as the debate goes on, it'll be more separate as in the 2 different circumstances. But it's looking, and certainly going for Brendan's comments again, that reading between the lines, he certainly feels that it's done for both Daniel Kelly and Rocco Vata at Celtic. Well, Rocco Vata absolutely is. It's already official. He's away to Watford. And it's looking like Daniel Kelly is going to be following him out the door. Believe it's to Bayern Leverkusen. Now, there are certainly the way that Brendan spoke, I couldn't find fault with it. He's obviously the face of the club, and he says, we've made both players what we feel are fair and valid offers, both in terms of their contract and their, sort of guarantees of what to come, what to expect from their place in the squad this season coming and future seasons. But both players, certainly one, and it is looking like the other, are going to reject those offers and move out the door. What's your thoughts on that? Would you prefer they stayed? Do you not necessarily that bothered? Do you have favour one over the other? And just generally thoughts. But just before I do, can I just say as well, I've just got a little icon up here to say that we've got over 100 live watching, and considering all the technical issues at the start, want to say a big thanks to everybody for tuning in and getting them. The comments have been absolutely fantastic tonight, and we appreciate it's pre-season. We appreciate there's not much transfer activity like we all want there to be, but for everyone to stick with us, we really appreciate it. So all the thanks aside, Stephen, take it away.
I mean, just to circle back quickly to what you were saying about and we'll come on to the youth. You were saying about the Euros. You can use that as like almost if they come off the back of a long hard season, then they're away in the Euros, they're going to turn their phone off. That to me is null and void. Hearts completed the signing of a player who was starring for Costa Rica in the Copa America. Do you know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure this fella had a long hard season. there's ways and means to sign players when they're in competitions. There's ways and means to do it before. And I think the Celtic board, like Maestro said, dragged their feet time and time again. Our share price is through the roof. The highest it's been in over 25 years. Do you know what I mean? The club is in a great financial shape. But on to the youth side of things, Rocco Fata, I'm actually happy he's away. I've never experienced the saga over a player who never really featured for a first team. Maybe Carmogo Dembele to an extent, but you could actually see Dembele being a superstar. You could see why teams are interested. You could maybe see why he would move on. Obviously, he's at Blackpool now, but Rocco Fata, I thought, was so above his station in his own mind that he should be a first team starter off the back of 10 or 12 goals in the B setup in the Lowland League. And we all know, no disrespect, but you're playing against part-time footballers, builders and joiners. Do you know what I mean? So it's not really a measuring tool to measure what you can do at first team level. What I maybe think Celtic should have done better there was, again, the pathway side of things. So if they could offer Rocco Fata a loan move, and we know we have the feeder club over in Austria at Miedewagger, and I'm going to get slaughtered for that, but that's the only way I know how to say it. Anderson and Oluwemi went there last season. Anderson got into the team of the year over there in the second division in the Austrian League, which is a tough competition. If Rocco Fata could have had that pathway to a team like that, or do what Lawwell done and went to Fleetwood and showcased his skills, then potentially he can make a case to be in the first team more regularly and in the picture more so than what he was. Watford come in for him. I think it was Graham in the comments said he got offered like £25,000 a week. Outrageous. Absolute, it's outrageous. But these teams can afford to do that. These teams can afford to take a chance like that. We could probably only offer him not even a quarter of that to stay on as a third choice striker, and he's made the choice to move. And look, that's his own prerogative. But there's issues left, right, and centre of our youth academy, and I know there was all these announcements yesterday from the Celtic page about new academy setup, that Darren O'Day's a pathways manager, Steve McManus is going to be assisted by Johnny Hayes, Adam Ashgar's under 18s with another fella, Chris Young, I believe, I can't remember, but they're going to kind of head up the academy departments from the under 18s up to senior level. And again, to me, it's totally uninspiring. I mean, you're spending £25 million on a Barrowfield development, and you're filling the development with the old faces that we had before. If I was a club, if I owned a club and I was spending upwards of £25 million on a new training facility, I'm picking the best that we could afford for different departments, whether it's sports science, whether it's data analysis, whether it's recruitment for young players, whether it's the best youth coaches in your area, best youth coaches in Europe. We can do that. We can attract people like that, but it's just the same old. And I mean, we've all interviewed players. We've all had them on here before. Poshney, Patrick McNally, the legs who were on here, and they have said there's a pathway to the first team, which is fair enough. But unfortunately, at the moment, it does seem closed. But on the evidence, if I'm a wee bit harsh, watching a lot of the young players against Queen's Park, I don't think many of them will make it in the Celtic shirt, and that's obviously just off 45 to 90 minutes, however the long they may featured in that game. Daniel Kelly. Again, it feels like to me he thinks he's above his station. It feels like to me he thinks he should be in the mix. I mean, you're fighting in a midfielder with McGregor, with Atate, O'Reilly, the best trio in Scotland. Underneath them, you have players as well that can come in and do a job. Thiago Holm, who's an upcoming kind of prospect as well. So I mean, so these guys need to feature, and Daniel Kelly's obviously not accepting the contract that we're doing. Bayer Leverkusen have come in and apparently offered him a deal. And if he wants to go to Bayer Leverkusen, he can go to Bayer Leverkusen, which is fair enough. I think what Rodgers is doing is correct. Although I think it's a bit hypocritical in one sense when he says he wants to trim the squad, but still brings the shite with him to these pre-season trips. If it was me, I would leave them all behind. But the fact that he's put his foot down and told Daniel Kelly, you're not coming to pre-season if you don't agree to this contract, you're not getting involved. People may say it's harsh, but if Celtic have said they've made him a good offer, then the ball's in his court, and he has until January until he wants to decide where to future action. We can't be getting held to ransom from players who think they should be in a starting position when there's no merit or no background to suggest that they should. That's why I'm saying that the pathway side of things has to be improved. I guess Darren O'Day, it's been confirmed. We have to stick with that. If he can find solutions for these young players, I'm all for it. If I can see Olawami not rotting away in the B team and on loan to English League One or the Austrian second division, I'd be like happy days. First time exposure, great environments to be involved in. If I can see Matthew Anderson improve from the season he had last season, then he can maybe come in next season and challenge Greg Taylor for a left back jersey. And if you can see the likes of the young players we featured, Mitchell Frame, going on loan to the Scottish Championship side and creating these partnerships with different clubs that we can give our youth to develop and nurture and then bring them back and hopefully be future first team stars for us. I mean, Ryan Christie, Chris Iyer, it's worked. It's benefited us so much in the past. And I just think we need to focus on what we can do and what we can do to improve these players instead of letting them move on to different countries and letting them move on without really seeing them or ever seeing them. In the Celtic, certainly Liam Morrison, Barry Hepburn went to Bayern Munich. Ben Doak was seeing him for a cameo appearance. Again, that's Liverpool. You can't really compete with that. But there's so many instances where we've let these players go without giving them the chance to shine in their own right in a Celtic jersey. And that, to me, is the pathway side of things. The pathway needs to be clear. Again, loans, you move up. Bigger loan, you move up to the senior team. So there needs to be that constant progression, that constant kind of churning out players year in, year out. But unfortunately, just at this moment, Anthony, and I think another thing that happens as well, it's a knock-on effect. You see it with the Scottish national team. I mean, you can't compare, obviously, here, but like Spain can afford to play a 16-year-old, 19-year-old. I mean, they're developed properly. You got Belgium, who have constantly streams of talent coming through. And it's all to do with talent from grassroots level, coaching from grassroots level, and then you're moved up in the academy situations. And unfortunately, Scotland at this precise moment don't really cater to that, which loses you a lot of good potential in youth.
Yeah, it's all fair, mate. Ross, he's replenished his Guinness. Mate, so basically what we're trying to say is there any sort of difference sort of in both players' circumstances, even although Brendan seems to have been very ruthless with both players, as Stephen says, that he's been told that he's, Daniel Kelly won't be coming on pre-season in America unless he makes his mind up one way or the other. Rocco Vata is already away. Do you personally see any difference within the two different sets of circumstances, or do you put them all under the one banner of young player offered too much money, heads turned, away he goes, or do you think that there are nuances between the two different players?
I think personally there's big differences because Vata has been maybe in and around for maybe 2 seasons now, whereas Daniel Kelly's been, you would have to say, a season at best in and around it. But for me, I think that Rocco Vata has been making noises for the best part of a year now about wanting away, wanting more game time, whatever. He's a young guy who has done nothing domestically, let alone at a European level, to prove that he's good enough to make the grade at Celtic. And he's in no position to hold Celtic to ransom in much the same way as Liam Kelly, isn't he? But I think the difference is that Rocco Vata has made his move. It feels like he's believed his own hype, or the hype that he's been getting, which, by the way, I've never seen the pitch for Celtic. He could have been a good player for Celtic, but he has to be patient. He has to bide his time. I think the problem now as well is everything nowadays is instant. You get everything instant, and it's human nature. You just follow that, and you think everything in life you're going to get instant. You need to work hard to be able to play at the top level for Celtic. And Rocco Vata, I don't know if he has or hasn't, but last season, I know Rodgers had spoke about briefly that he could have been our third choice striker this year, but for the most part, I feel like he's been a winger. And last season he couldn't get into the team before Yang, who, for everybody, didn't perform to the levels that, that Celtic need and want. So if he's behind Yang, that says everything you need to know. And I know that Watford have come in. Watford are nowhere near as big a club as Celtic. Mikey Johnson isn't good enough for Celtic. He went to West Brom and done well. I'm sure Rocco Vat will go to Watford and do well, and good luck to him. But I'll go back to it. You cannot, playing a handful of games for Celtic, hold them to ransom over wages and better contract and more game time. You just can't do it. It's not on. Just get your head down, son. Work hard, and the rewards will come if they're deserved and your ability is there. In terms of Liam Kelly, is it Liam Kelly?
Daniel.
Liam Kelly. That's the goalie, isn't it? That's the goalie. Aye, Daniel Kelly. Listen, he came on and he scored a really good goal. I think it was the 7-1 or 7-0 game against Dundee, sort of halfway through last season. And it was a fantastic goal. And he's shown a lot of potential. But for me, the difference is that with the way the youth setup is now in Scotland, I think you see it. You've seen it with players in the last maybe 5 years. You look at Doak, guys like that who have left. And listen, Doak went to Liverpool. It was a really good offer, and I'm sure that if he'd stayed around Celtic for a longer period of time, we have to remember he was only 16, I think, when he left. If he stayed at Celtic for a longer period of time, the opportunities absolutely would have come. But he was 16. There's only a handful of guys that play top level first team football at 16-year-old. You look at Lamine Yamal. These are anomalies, these guys. Kieran Tierney came in at Celtic and he played for, I think he came in at 17, 18, was it?
Yeah.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But he came in. Aye, but he came in and Kieran Tierney has went on to the top level because he was a top level player, and that you couldn't ignore that guy. He came in and he was first team ready at that age. Daniel Kelly is not first team ready, right? But the reason that we're losing these players is not a Celtic issue. It's not a wage issue. Celtic have offered that laddie, and Brendan Rodgers has said it. We've offered that laddie as much as we think he's worth. And we're not. I don't think that Celtic should be paying over the odds to keep these young guys, because yes, they've got potential. Will they make it at Celtic? Who knows? But it's get your head down and do your best. But at the same time, you have to caveat it and go, well, you want him to get his head down and do that, but the reserve team, not the reserve team, the reserve setup in this country is a shambles. And he's probably weighed up his options and went, right, okay, Bayer Leverkusen, if that's who he goes to, are offering him more money. They will have, right? But they're also offering him the same amount of first team games that he probably would get at Celtic, which is limited. And he'll know that himself, that it's going to be limited, because there's quality experienced players in front of him. And I think he's accepted that. But then you look at it and you go, the German setup is going to be a lot better. Reserve setup is going to be a lot better than what we've got on offer. He's gone up against brickies week in, week out. I think, was it James that said the other night that if you play 5 games for the first team, then you can't play for the sort of reserve team. Is that right? So that is flawed beyond belief. That whoever made that rule up is absolutely on class A's. But he's weighed up his options and he's went Bayer Leverkusen, big club, good opportunity for me, better reserve league setup than what we've got in Scotland. I'm going to get as much game time with them as I'm at Celtic, but going there and playing in that reserve setup is going to be much better for me and my development. As much as I'm a Celtic fan, if I want to make it, I love Celtic. I still love Celtic, but I have to be selfish. You have to be selfish if you want to make the grade and make it at the top level as a footballer. And I think that he's made I think selfish is maybe even a bit of a harsh word, but he's made a decision for him, for his development. And it's not a Celtic issue. Things need to change in that reserve setup. We cannot have players who you know are not going to play week in, week out for Celtic, get 5 appearances and then not be able to play for the reserves again. That is not a pathway, but that is not a Celtic issue. That pathway is being blocked by the setup, not Celtic. If you're good enough, you'll play for Celtic, you'll play the 5 games. And if you're good enough to be in that first team, you'll play more than the 5 games because you've proved yourself, like Kieran Tierney did. But right now, the setup below that level is absolutely flawed. And that's what's holding everybody back. And that is why we're seeing, in my opinion, seeing these young guys leave Celtic year in, year out for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, because it is an absolute shambles and it is a disgrace that somebody in your governing body hasn't went, look at what's happening here, hold on a minute, let's restructure this because it's no working. And that for me is absolutely shocking. And as much as we say the Celtic board of a dereliction of duty, if that's the right term I'm using there, they're doing it in the governing body. It's not good enough. And it's, for me, not a Celtic issue. It is a governing body issue, and things need to change below that first team level for Celtic and other clubs to be able to bring these young guys through, keep them longer, and not lose them to clubs like Bayer Leverkusen or whoever it is all over Europe. It's so flawed. It's unbelievable.
Listen, I totally agree, and I think it's what we have. Feels like almost a daily discussion on the group chat at the minute. You know, we say
Get a bit emotional.
things. Yeah, but it's almost
a bit emotional there.
Yeah, we do.
So that.
There's bits here that I would actually say that there's large parts of all our arguments that it's like we're all agreeing. We're just,
Aye.
It's almost a sense of but where's the main culprit, and that's maybe where the frustration appears. I don't think, and I think that's the point is as well, that yes, you're absolutely right, Ross. The governing body is the most guilty party, but there probably is guilty parties across the board, probably including our own, and that comes from whether it be the club itself, whether it be the media that broadcast us, whether it be our governing bodies and the youth development. Basically, no one gets an A+ on their report card, I would say. And I think when you add all of those sort of wrong ingredients in, then as Stephen says, the pathway and the opportunities afforded to these talented young players do get more. I don't think it's any coincidence, and this is maybe where maybe me and McGinty do agree. You know, the last couple of really good players that really cracked it at Celtic, you would probably say Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Kieran Tierney. That I know James Forrest is slightly older, but that kind of generation, they were the sort of last generation of players that competed for Celtic in that. I think they called it the Next Gen series. It was basically a thing that they set up on the back of this ridiculous decision to scrap the reserve league. They went down this path of, right, well, instead of us doing this lowland league nonsense, which I think we all agree now is not beneficial to any Celtic player. It was basically they were playing in tournaments. Basically, like before a Champions League game, they would play this match at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It would almost mirror the Champions League group stage. So the best Celtic young players would play the best Man City young players, etc. That first season under Brendan, we played Barcelona and Manchester City and held our own against these guys. But for whatever reason, that series was knocked on the head. I don't know if it was at the assistance or the insistence of the SFA or not that Celtic and Rangers stopped competing in it. But to say it's held us back.
Celtic do compete. Celtic do compete in the Youth Champions League now, though.
Yeah. In the Youth Champions League, but this was a separate thing. And I'm sure it was called the Next. I'm sure it was called the Next Gen series. You know, clearing the title, and it was basically all the top clubs would play against each other, and you often found, more often than not, that Celtic were more than holding their own and got some big results and get against English sides, against top sides in the continent. And even the matches they lost, they were close games. I think one of the times they lost narrowly 2-1 to the top academy side for Barcelona. So it's almost like, you know, where are we getting stunted? Where are those players getting stunted? And I think, like you say, it is more a Scottish issue, maybe even a British issue rather than just a Celtic issue. But obviously we're selfish, and that's the you know, the team, that's the players that we look out for the best. Boys, I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to nip off and grab a quick can. So Stephen, I'm going to leave it to you to bring some of the comments in and ask Ross how his day went, etc. And I'll be back in a jiffy.
This has to be the most random podcast I think I've ever been a part of. It's all over the show, but it's actually quite enjoyable. No man, I'm good crack. But see, with the youth side of things, and I think it's the first time we've actually agreed an aspect of the governing body, and I think the Celtic issue as well, where it's not coinciding well. I mean, that 5-game rule to play in the Lowland League, and you can't play. Well, you play 5 games for the first team. You can't. That's shambolic, like, and you can't really get anywhere with that. Do you know what I mean? It's how you meant to develop the next generation of footballer if you can't do it. And in the comments, Stephen John comes in. I'm still getting used to this. I feel this is the most furthest away I've ever been from the tablet. I have to lean over. Are Celtic going to just spend a few quid more than they do? Don't know. Stephen, Jimmy, Tony, I will not text you, Monty, can't tonight, Chief. I can't. I have my 2 kids, so I need to be on guard if one of them starts crying. Let me see. B comes in. If we win the league cup, we overtake Sevco and combined teams haul this calendar year. There's plenty of stuff to aim for, Jimmy. Can I just say, Stephen, I love you. I love you too, mate. I love you. I know who you are now. It took me a while to clock on before, but I know who you are. But wow. See, in regards to Rocco Vada, right? Ben Doak, remember Leo Hjelde? Remember these guys? Aye. And Barry Hepburn played for Leeds. Yeah, Barry Hepburn, Liam Morrison, who's now at Wigan under Sean Maloney. He completed a permanent transfer. Do you not think there's a case where maybe if you look at Ben Doak, right? Could we have had him at second, third choice instead of the players that we had then? Because let's be fair, none of them really cut the mustard under Jada and Abada and Mieta. There was plenty of room there to develop. You look at Leo Hjelde, when he was around, the defensive options we had underneath the starters weren't that great. So is there a case to say that maybe if you keep the young players around, you cut out signing the shite, then that could potentially bridge the gap from first team to academy level by giving them chances, maybe second or third choice underneath a starter, instead of having the likes of Kobayashi, have the likes of Palma. Yes, Palma. Do you know what I mean? These guys, could you take their positions and give them the youth and sign a better starter? Do you know what I mean?
But you're assuming then that the youth are not as shite as Kobayashi, and that whereas maybe they are worse than them. Do you know what I mean? You don't know that we're not privy to that because we're not seeing them in training or week in, week out, every day, whatever it is. But listen, we've spunked a lot of money up against the wall last summer, but in other summers, and Angie's first summer, we spent well. We brought in good players. You have peaks and troughs and signings and windows, and the last 2 windows we haven't been great. I think the summer window last year wasn't great because Rodgers accepted all the shite that the fucking terrible recruitment team put to him because he was just feeling his way back in. He was feeling his way back into the job. But January, for me, we didn't sign that. But we signed Ida, whatever you want to say. And he came in, he done brilliant, but it was a loan. And it was a last minute one because I think at that point, Rodgers wasn't accepting the players that were being put to him. And I think it's evident now in this early to mid part of the summer window that he's not accepting that again. But I went off on a bit of a tangent there for what your question was, but I don't know, man. Listen,
Tony's fault. Fucking Tony's fault. It's all right.
I was on a tech run. But basically, and as I said, I was listening. I know, and I do agree with a lot of the points that were made, and probably in terms of the last kind of topic for tonight. I would say, boys, we've obviously spoke about the youth deal and potentially Kasper Schmeichel, etc. However, we're obviously stateside come Tuesday, I believe. I think our first game stateside is next weekend against DC United. I might be right there, Stephen. You can correct me on that. Brendan has said that he hopes to have some players in by that point. Probably my short answer, short question to that be is, will we, Ross? And if we do, who do you think those player or players will be?
Will we get signings in before stateside?
Yeah.
This wee guy's no holding his breath. Plain and simple. Listen, I hope we do. I really hope we do. At the very least, a goalkeeper. But if we don't, there's still time.
Oh, for fuck's
sake. I trust that. No, I trust that the players that we eventually do get in will be of the calibre that Rodgers wants. I don't think he's signing players for the sake of a body, and that's a good thing. But the length of time it's taking is worrying. But it's not like the season starts next week. I know it's getting closer and closer, but there's still time for Celtic to get these deals over the line. And listen, it's probably more hope than anything else at the minute. And as I've said before, my hope, or what I think we need, is 7 players. What I expect would be maybe, or what I think we need would be 7. What I hope for is at least 4. But what I expect is probably lower than that. I think if we get a goalie and we get a striker, we'll be doing fucking well, boys.
It's slim pickings at the moment. And what about yourself, Stephen? Are you keeping the faith that there will be some new faces on that plane, on Peter Lawwell's private jet to New York?
My faith in that board and recruitment team went in probably 2009. There's no faith in that recruitment team. But apparently, according to Bobby and Graham, it's apparently accelerated. And Fabrizio Romano and a few Celtic pages have tweeted out that the deal's agreed, a 1-year deal with an option of a second year. So it looks like Kasper Schmeichel, by all accounts, tonight will be on that plane. Can we count him as a new signing? I don't know. It's one of them ones that he's going to be a new name. He's going to be a goalkeeper. But talk about him as
it's going to be one of the deals. It's going to be one of the deals that either is absolutely superb or it'll come back to haunt us. What can you say?
Well, 100%. But in regards to, well, you just said this is our last topic, so I'm guessing our 5 minutes. Fuck's sake. Never mind here all week.
Stephen Ross was either really unimpressed with that pun or it's went straight out of his head, and I'm unsure.
I never heard it.
It's signing Kasper Schmeichel will either be an absolutely cracking deal or it'll come back to haunt us. No, I feel like I've just had to explain my joke on.
I've got it now. I've got it now.
I just laugh being polite. I don't even notice it either.
Because he Kasper the friendly ghost, like.
Well, I hope he's never seen in a Celtic shirt. But look, in regards to other positions, nah. We won't have anybody on that plane. And then after the DC United game, Rodgers will be like, there's a lot of business happening behind the scenes. It's really tough and we can't get it done and it's tough and all this passion.
It's mental how bad you're an Irish accent.
I know. Guy's Irish too.
I was close. He just talks about it being tough all the time. Stop telling us lies. It's not that hard. Get a couple of players in. That's all we need to happen, and then everything will be acoustic.
Right.
But what you would say, Steve, I think what Brendan's more thinking is it's not about just the type of players that you're getting, and it's all about the quality and the playing with that intensity at all times, wherever.
The
They've got
personality.
to put in the work.
The personality.
Put the work in. And if you put that work and that dedication and working at that intensity, you've got a real good chance of working well at Celtic.
It's mad. You're good at that. I'm so bad.
It's just turning into only a fucking excuse tonight, man. Tell you. Come on. But yeah, listen. I'm as I say, I'm trying to be more positive with the Kasper Schmeichel chat. As I say, I think he's probably copy and paste some of my kind of thoughts that I had about Joe Hart coming in. This is he's probably coming in here with a point to prove. And I think he's been there. He's done it all in football. He's won a league championship at Leicester City. He's won an FA Cup at Leicester City. He's played in the Champions League. He has, by all accounts, he's still the Danish number one in an era where Denmark have been a very decent, respected team. So I do think he ticks a lot of boxes.
Tell me his competition though at Denmark. Do you know what I mean? It's just one level.
Right, but his competition is about as known as the guys that you want Celtic to sign out with.
Oh, gee, listen.
Jay.
That was an Alcaraz return to a great serve.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Stephen has left the chat.
End stream, frick.
But as I say, so when is our first game? Is it next Saturday? We play DC United live and exclusive on Celtic TV and Fire Sticks across the land.
Yeah. I'll know you see it. I'm away for my anniversary.
Oh, fair. Where are you going?
We're going to Glasgow.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
You old romantic, you.
I know. I'm a player.
No.
That doesn't work. Doesn't work. I'm going to let my wife know my bit on the side.
Well, I can only hope you have a very pleasant evening, Ross. But you could possibly but might even top the experience you've had on the conversation here tonight. That's just the way we roll on Endless Celts. But I think in terms of tonight's show, boys, I've went through all the topics I wanted to discuss. You've got anything you want to chat about?
I want to talk about
Monty. I want to talk about Monty. Let's talk about how much dick he is.
Am I going to talk the chat again?
Ross, Tony, I want to chuck something to both of you, right? Because I feel like we haven't discussed it. Well, we discussed it, but it's kind of
not a copy pish.
A cup of what?
A copy pish.
I finished it.
My chucks on it. Anyway.
All right, okay. Right. So, signings, right? Ross, you made your wee passive-aggressive comment to me a couple of minutes ago about my signings not being known. Okay, that's fair enough. That's no problem at all. But in a landscape of things, right? We're sitting with X amount of £1 million in the bank. Rogers, to me, sounds unhappy at the lack of business that's been happening. He said he expected 2 or 3 signings in by America. We're probably getting Kasper, and that's it. If this keeps happening, why would Rogers stay?
Well, I mean, it's a valid question, and there's no reason why he would stay. He's been sold a fucking lie when he came in. But again, we've said it. Anthony said it as well that Rodgers might be holding out for that quality player that he wants, and maybe what's the speaking more? He's holding out for that quality player that he wants, but I don't know, man. Listen, there's still time in this window to get the deals done that Rodgers wants. And as I've said earlier in the podcast, I think we need 7 players to get this team to where we want to be. I don't think Celtic and any guys would get the 7 players of the quality that Rodgers wants and the quality that we need and we all crave. I think it's very difficult. I said earlier in the podcast that I think it's going to take another maybe 2 windows, possibly even 3, to get the 7 players that we need. Plus, we need to ship out some of the shite that was, that was already there and that was brought in last summer. I think the wingers that we've got right now are not the level that we need. That'll need to be addressed. I don't think it'll be addressed in this window because I think there's more pressing issues, and that is obviously the goalkeeper. I think whether it be somebody to take over for Greg Taylor or be an understudy, we absolutely need our left back in because we've only got Greg Taylor. So I think they 2 signings will happen. I think a centre half might happen because Lager Bielka, will be away. I think that Navroki is very injury prone. I don't know if he's going to be good enough to partner CCV and to be that defender that we need and want. So I think certainly, as I've said, the goalie and the left back, possibly a centre half will come in, depending on what Rodgers thinks of what we've got there already. Me personally, you look at Scales, he was his number 1 alongside CCV. I don't want us to start this season with Liam Scales as our number 1. I think he done really well, but I think we can get better than Liam Scales. I think Starfelt, for all his indeficiencies, if that's the right word, I think that he was better than Liam Scales. I think we need a striker, and I think we've addressed that we need another striker. So for me, out of the 7, I think we'll get a goalie, a left back, a striker, possibly a centre half this window. I think that's what I hope for. That's what I expect. Whether it happens, I don't know. At the very least, I think we need a goalie, a left back, and a striker. So that's 3 players out of 7 that I think we need. If we get that, I'll be content-ish. Not delighted, but if they're the level and quality that we all crave, and the manager clearly craves, then I'll be content knowing that, okay, we've got the guys in, so that if they come in and they're the level above what we've signed last summer, then I'll believe that in the next window, and the window after that the players that we need will all come in and they'll be off that level. Obviously, you at times you won't get it right, so maybe 1 or 2 will be wrong, but your hit rate will be higher if you go for that higher level of player than what we have previously, because the hit rate is always going to be 50% or below with that sort of project type player.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just find it interesting because I've seen a lot of comments coming in, and Plunge McNugget talking about Brendan needs to tell us the truth. There's no way Schmeichel was his first choice, Anthony. And Graham beforehand was talking about the Rodgers lost leverage with the board when he had said he would be here for the 3 years unless he was punted. So there's all these different arguments around it. And look, obviously we don't want to be too negative, and like what Ross has said, maybe the time and patience element side of things has to come into play here, finding that right type of player. Kasper Schmeichel, I don't believe was his first choice, but again, it's steady hands and he knows him. That kind of old talk. But surely in some aspect of things, Rodgers has obviously pushed back on, like you said at the start, Anthony, about 9 players could have come in the door. He's obviously said no to these guys. What if the board are playing hardball with him and not putting the bids in that he wants for his specific targets, and then eventually ends up in a situation where we do have to bring the project players back in because Brendan's first choice targets he identified we can't get. And then it begs, well, he would be a choice, Monty, but he definitely wouldn't be first. I don't think he convinced anybody that he'd be first choice. But then you're in a situation, Anthony, where, like Ross has said, the more evidence that we see is that Rodgers has been sold down a river. He has to just wait out his 3 years before he can jump ship again. It's kind of a lose-lose for Rodgers in that way, isn't it? Saying that comment, being there for 3 years, and then if he doesn't like what the board are doing, he can't really take umbrage about it and leave, because it then looks like he's just through the head up. But there has to be an element of truth somewhere there, that something isn't really quite clicking the way he wants it to do with the recruitment team and the process at the minute.
Listen, in terms of has he been sold a pup? I've kind of thought that probably from about August last year. I was probably part of the. I mean, I wanted him back. I mean, the minute that became even a remote possibility, I was sort of straight in, all guns blazing, bring him home. And you know, we have. And I think, like most supporters, I was under the impression that, well, we know how sort of toxic the relationship was between Brendan and Lawwell and other members of the board. By the hence why Brendan walked it, but why he did what he did. So for him to come back whilst a lot of those guys were still in place, I think we all just could only have assumed, well, there must have been either at the very least clear the air talks, or the way that we felt is that things had improved. And, you know, he did say that when he came in, that he's been, you know, informed by people at the club, Callum McGregor included, it has to be said, that, you know, things are different now. Things work quicker now that Michael Nicholson's the chief executive. Targets get identified quicker. Bids get made quicker. If that bid's not accepted, we move on to another target quicker. You know, everything's just a little bit more smoother. So I think that's what we were. I think we were probably expecting the same kind of process of Angie's first season, where once he identified the players, the board just, or Michael Nicholson certainly, just went out and got them. Now, people, I can understand why people are saying he shouldn't have said what he said about the 3 years thing. And I probably don't think any other manager would have. But the problem is, Brendan wasn't just coming back to a board that, you know, he left on bad terms with. Despite a lot of the, you know, people say, oh, it's the end of the season. But if anyone believes that Ange Postecoglou just started talking with Daniel Levy a week before the cup final and then joined on the Tuesday, if anyone thinks the conversations weren't taking place during a league campaign, then, you know, is to coin one of James's phrases, I've got some magic beans to sell you. Brendan was at the end of his tether in 2019 for a lot of reasons, most of them valid. He probably underestimated the fact that a lot of the supporters were still seeing everything at that point through a 10-in-a-row prism, and leaving in the middle of a campaign with two massive games in Edinburgh coming up left a bitter taste in the mouth. And I think probably the vitriol behind that probably gave the board more protection than they A, warranted, or B, expected. And I think probably Brendan underestimated the wrath that he would cop from it. I think don't know the man, but I think he possibly felt that we would sympathise with his frustrations, because it's frustrations that we've always had with this board. But with him coming back, we thought perhaps things have changed. But I think we've quite quickly realised that that's not been the case. But because there is an element, and I would actually still say there still is an element, that whether they say it or not are barely tolerating him, shall we say. The fact that he's won the 2 trophies will perhaps give him some leeway, but I think if the season wasn't to start right, I think those murmurings from those same elements of supporters about Brendan Rodgers would come up again. So I think he is probably quite quickly, or late on in the summer, just decided, I'll be diplomatic, I've got to play both sides, but when it comes to the actual signing of players, I think we started that sort of process of I'm only accepting what I want started in January, and I think it's happened again in the summer. That being said, I think unless he's offered like the Man United job or something, I can still see him being here for the 3 years, because I think, well, A, he's put himself in that position, but B, you know, just the way the market is in England at the moment. He's went back down there. He's won his cup. And he's proved himself again. So I think Celtic is a good place for him to be at the moment in terms of massive club. He's going to be playing in Champions League, but I don't think those relationships have ever repaired. I would say though that I think the vast majority there will always be that element that don't forgive him for making a career decision. But I think the vast majority of supporters this time round would back him rather than the board were he to do something similar. I don't think he will do that before the 3 years is up, but if he was to do it, I think there would be a lot more supporters that would sympathise with Brendan's actions, and I think the board would cop a lot more flack than what they did first time round.
Yeah, I was just interested to hear. Fair enough. Back to you, Tony. You're
as I say, boys, that kind of wraps it up for me. Certainly tonight, as I say, we've covered all the topics I want to. Delighted we eventually got going tonight. Apologies again for ending the show early doors, but have you enjoyed it anyway?
Yeah, it's been good to get back on again.
First time back on for the end of last season, and I've enjoyed it. It took a wee while to get into it. I was talking a lot of shite to start with, but I feel like I redeemed myself a couple of times.
Do you know what? Listen, I think the last time I was on was the Monday after the cup final. So it just shows you. I think obviously we've had stuff on, then we had a break, and then the Euros has been on. Listen, look at us justifying our lack of action the same way the Celtic board do these days. But such is And Stephen, have you been? As I say, just with the way the rota works now, this is a trio that's not normally all on together much anymore. But have you enjoyed it?
Mate, brilliant crack. As you know, I had the kind of set was 50-50 this morning because I've got the two kids over, but thankfully they've both been okay with it on with you, so it's been good crack and good to talk Celtic and just got it by the way. Willie couldn't join us; he's experienced some technical difficulties with his laptop and stuff, but he'll be back on soon again, and we'll get him on to get him talking Celtic and having the crack with all of us. But yeah, been good to have that debate, have that sharpness, have that kind of to and fro. Do you know what I mean? Passive aggressive Ross back to his best. So
I don't know what you're talking about. Passive aggressive.
I think as I say, this is our pre-season as much as the players, and by the time the big new season launch show starts, I'm sure we'll all be back up to full fitness and raring to go again. But I just want to say, just before we finish off, as I say, we're still over 100 live, which is absolutely fantastic numbers for us at any time of this year, let alone the pre-season. So we thank everybody, all the regulars that have returned, and a couple of new faces in there as well. Absolutely, that was going to be my sign off. Obviously, good luck to Spain on Sunday. We're all behind you. We want to see tears. We want to see devastation for our neighbours down south. And here's hoping for a big win for Espana boys on Sunday night. And
got me in a blade paella.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll be back. Will we be back next week, Stephen? Are we doing another show next week?
We'll be doing a show next week. I can't remember when. it's on the schedule. It's on the schedule. But it will definitely be one. I think it's 2 next week. We're doing 2.
Two next week. So all of you guys that have liked and subscribed, obviously you'll know that you'll get that notification when we're live. So just keep your ear to the ground on that. And thanks again, everybody. And stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.